In the world of video games, sometimes a game releases and it has a lasting impact on gaming for years. The Last of Us is one of those games, and with Season 2 of the HBO series releasing, I thought it would be a good idea to replay The Last of Us, just so we can have another look at what makes this video game so goddamn special. You experience Joel and Ellie's relationship in The Last of Us as a profound journey of emotional growth, built on loss, trust and survival. From the moment their paths cross, you witness the gradual evolution of their bond, shaped by the unforgiving world they navigate together. What makes their relationship special isn't just the circumstances, it's the way it reflects humanity's capacity for love, even amidst unimaginable tragedy. When you first see Joel and Ellie together, their relationship is defined by resistance. Joel, haunted by the traumatic loss of his daughter Sarah, is emotionally shut off, reluctant to let anyone close. For him, Ellie starts as nothing more than cargo, a task given to him by the Fireflies. On the other hand, Ellie, though independent and curious, is a 14-year-old girl who has never known life before the apocalypse. She's wary of trusting someone who seems so cold and detached. You feel this tension early on, and it's this reluctance that makes the journey feel so real. Joel resists forming emotional attachments because he feels the pain of losing someone again, whilst Ellie craves connection in a world where relationships are fleeting. Their hesitance makes their eventual bond all the more meaningful, as it mirrors your own need for time to trust someone deeply. As you progress through the game, you see Joel and Ellie's relationship evolve through shared hardships. Each encounter with danger, whether it's fighting off infected, surviving ambushes, or enduring betrayal, requires cooperation. In those moments, you notice how they begin to rely on one another, not just for survival, but for emotional connection. Joel starts teaching Ellie practical skills, like how to use a rifle, which demonstrates his growing investment in her well-being. Ellie's humour and resilience start to chip away at Joel's stoicism. You hear her jokes, see her curiosity, and experience her genuine care, which begin to reawaken Joel's capacity to connect. You realise their bond is growing when Joel's protectiveness shifts from being transactional to personal. One of the most powerful aspects of their relationship is how Joel and Ellie gradually take on the roles of surrogate father and daughter. You feel this transformation most acutely in moments of vulnerability. For instance, when Ellie runs away after overhearing Joel's plan to hand her off to Tommy, you understand that her fear isn't just about being left behind, it's about being abandoned by someone she's come to see as family. When Joel bites back at her with the iconic line, "You're not my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad," it's clear he's fighting against the very connection that terrifies him, and yet by saying it aloud, you sense that the walls around his heart are crumbling. It's my favourite scene in the whole game.
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
The winter chapter, where Ellie fights to protect an injured Joel, marks a turning point. By switching to Ellie's perspective, you experience the depth of her devotion for the first time. Joel becomes the vulnerable one, dependent on Ellie's strength. When Joel recovers and embraces Ellie, calling her baby girl, the same term he once used for Sarah, you feel the weight of his emotional breakthrough. It's a moment that encapsulates how far they've come. Joel finally allows himself to love again, and Ellie becomes someone who's truly loved in return. What makes Joel and Ellie's relationship so special is how deeply human it feels. Through their journey, you see not just the external challenges of survival, but the internal struggles of trust, grief, and love. Their story resonates because it mirrors your own experiences with relationships, the fear of loss, the need for connection, and the lengths you might go to protect someone you love. By the end of the game, you realise their bond isn't just about survival anymore, it's about redemption. Joel finds a reason to heal, and Ellie finds a place she belongs. The beauty of their relationship lies in its complexity, reminding you that even in a world as broken as theirs, love can still flourish. And the other characters in the game are also fantastic, most notably the likes of Sam and Henry. When you meet these two, you immediately notice their brotherly bond. Henry, the older brother, is fiercely protective of Sam, much like Joel is with Ellie. However, their dynamic is distinct. Henry's protectiveness is rooted in mentorship and sacrifice, whereas Joel stems from his trauma and longing for redemption. You quickly see that Henry and Sam offer a parallel to Joel and Ellie, but with a critical difference. They represent a relationship without the same level of agency on both sides. Sam is younger, more naive, and more dependent on Henry than Ellie is on Joel. This dynamic is compelling because it highlights how survival creates an emotional burden for caretakers like Henry. You can see his struggle to maintain hope and keep Sam alive, even in a world that constantly strips people of their humanity. Henry is a fascinating character because he embodies both strength and fragility. He's pragmatic and resourceful, qualities that allow him and Sam to survive as long as they do. His split-second decision-making, like leaving Joel and Ellie behind temporarily during the escape from the hunters, show his prioritization of Sam above all else. You understand his actions, even when they seem harsh, because they stem from his role as an older brother trying to shield his sibling from harm. However, Henry's breakdown after Sam's death reveals the limits of his strength. His entire purpose, keeping Sam safe, crumbles in an instant, leaving him utterly lost. When he does unalive himself, it's a shocking and deeply emotional moment, one that underscores how fragile the human psyche can be in such an unforgiving world. The theme of morality in The Last of Us is central to its storytelling, challenging you to consider the complexities of right and wrong in a world stripped of conventional ethics. Rather than presenting morality in black and white terms, the game thrives in shades of grey, forcing you to grapple with decisions and actions that often serve survival rather than justice. This moral ambiguity underpins the entire narrative, shaping how you perceive the characters, their choices, and the world they inhabit. From the outset, the game establishes survival as the highest priority in its post-apocalyptic setting. The collapse of society has eroded traditional moral framework, replacing them with pragmatism and self-preservation. Joel embodies this shift. When you first meet him in the prologue, his instinct to protect his family aligns with a traditional sense of morality. However, as the world falls apart and his world gets shot, you see him make choices that prioritise survival over what might traditionally be considered right. For instance, his willingness to kill others without hesitation or to manipulate people for his own benefit speaks to a moral code dictated by necessity rather than compassion. Ellie, in contrast, represents a more idealistic view of morality, at least initially. She questions Joel's ruthless pragmatism, and her actions suggest a lingering belief of doing the right thing. As the story progresses, however, Ellie does begin to adopt some of Joel's moral ambiguity, particularly during the aforementioned winter chapter when she kills David to survive. You are left questioning whether survival at all costs is justifiable, or whether there's still room for humanity in such a brutal world. Violence is a key driver of the game's exploration of morality. Almost every character you encounter in this game has committed acts of violence to survive at some point. Yet the game rarely labels these actions as purely good or evil. When Joel kills hunters or fireflies, for instance, the violence is contextualized as necessary for survival, but it's not presented as heroic. You are made to feel the weight of Joel's actions, particularly in the way that Ellie reacts to them, and are forced to question whether the ends truly justify the means. Even Joel's own backstory reflects this moral ambiguity. You learn that he's done terrible things to survive, including killing innocent people, yet the game never fully condemns him for these choices. Instead, it asks you to emphasise with his circumstances and to consider whether you might have acted the same way in his position. This nuanced approach to violence challenges you to question your own moral compass, particularly as you actively participate in Joel and Ellie's actions throughout the game. One of the most profound aspects of the game's moral exploration lies in the tension between loyalty and broader ethical concerns. Joel's love for Ellie drives many of his decisions, particularly in the final act of the game, when he chooses to save her from the Fireflies at the cost of humanity's potential salvation. This decision is, of course, morally complex, because it pits individual love against the greater good. You can't help but emphasise with Joel's choice. After all, his journey with Ellie has rekindled his ability to love and feel a connection again, but it's impossible to ignore the devastating consequences of his actions for the rest of humanity, allegedly. What makes the moment so powerful is that the game doesn't offer you a clear moral stance. While Joel's actions are selfish in one sense, they're also deeply human. His refusal to lose Ellie mirrors the grief he felt after losing Sarah, making his choice understandable, even if it's ethically troubling. The game forces you to confront the moral paradox. Can an act driven by love still be morally wrong? And can you really say you wouldn't have attempted to do the same thing in the same position? David, on the other hand, serves as a darker reflection of this, demonstrating how survival can lead to complete moral degradation. His willingness to manipulate and harm others for his own benefit, including his predatory behaviour towards Ellie, shows you the extreme end of the moral spectrum in this world. By juxtaposing Joel with characters like David, the game asks you to consider where the line is drawn between necessary pragmatism and outright cruelty, as the slope is pretty darn slippery. The brilliant voice acting and presentation of The Last of Us profoundly enhances its narrative, elevating it far beyond a conventional video game story. These elements infuse the experience with emotional resonance, immersion, and authenticity, forging a powerful connection between you and the characters. The nuanced performances of Troy Baker as Joel and Ashley Johnson as Ellie are central to this impact. Their portrayals breathe life into the characters, capturing complex emotions such as Joel's grief and Ellie's longing for connection. Through subtle vocal inflections, they convey vulnerability, strength, and the evolving bond between them two. Realistic dialogue and delivery further enhance the narrative's impact. The conversations between characters feel natural, mirroring spontaneous human interactions. The banter between Joel and Ellie during quieter moments not only lightens the tone, but showcases their growing relationship, while tense confrontations reveal fractures in their dynamic. This balance between warmth and conflict adds layers to the story, making their journey more relatable and compelling. The game's cinematic presentation amplifies these performances. Through motion capture, Naughty Dog captured not just the actors' voices, but also their body language, their facial expressions, and subtle movements, blending these seamlessly with the game's visuals. The attention to detail ensures that every gesture, glance, or reaction feels intentional. The Last of Us is one of gaming's biggest triumphs. Its impact is undeniable, and whilst many have conflicting opinions on the sequel, the initial game is a landmark moment in gaming's history, and a game that will continue to be celebrated for many years.
You just come after her.
Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you did enjoy it. Will you be watching the second season of The Last of Us? Please let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button because it really does help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, click subscribe. I upload at least one video a week. But for now, that is all. Have a nice day and goodbye.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault!
Henry! Henry, no!